This tutorial, we're going to take a look at the old cloning tool and the new content aware tools and see in which instance one might be better than the other. I'm going to start by repairing the missing eye on the left hand side of this document. Now both tools allow us to use a blank layer on which to work so that if we don't like what we did, we can throw it out and we haven't damaged our original file. So I've gone and made a new layer named Repair, and I'm first going to try and repair this with the clone stamp tool. So I'll hit S on the keyboard and I'm going to choose all layers, and that's going to allow me to clone through and gather the content from all the layers below. Now I'm going to put my cursor over the eye and I'm going to increase the size of the brush tool. I'll use the close bracket to make it large enough to copy the whole socket. And then I'll hold down the Option key, click on the eyeball, and then drag the brush over to where I want the eye to be, and I'll click with my left mouse. Now there's two things wrong with this. The eye's in the wrong direction and it's not the right color and value. And that was the cloning tool. So I'm going to Z that out. And I'm going to go back in this time and try it with the Content Aware tool. So to get to the Content Aware tools, I'm going to hit J. It's going to take me to a series of tools. When I left mouse click on that, I can see a number of icons. The ones you'll find yourself using mostly are the top two, those band-aid icons. The patch tool must be used directly on the file itself, and then you run the risk of damaging the file. The spot healing tool will do everything the patch tool does. So now I'm going to go ahead and repair it using the Content Aware healing brush. So once again, I'm going to want to make sure that all layers is chosen. I'll put my brush icon over the eye to be replicated. I'll tap the close bracket to get the scale I want. But the other thing I need to do is make sure the eye flips over. So I'm going to go to the Clone Source window. And in the Clone Source window, if I go down to where it says Source, directly next to the W for width, if I click on those two rectangles, it'll assure me that whatever I replicate will be flipped over horizontally. So now I'll put my brush back over the eye to be replicated, hold down the Option key, click on the eyeball, and drag my brush icon where I'd like it to be, click on it, and take my brush away, and we can see that it's replicated, flipped it over, and it's blended in the values and the color. So that's the big advantage between the traditional clone source tool, S on your keyboard, and the Content Aware tools, which is J. Now I'm going to use this Content Aware tool to clear up a spot, and it's not going to really work perfectly. So you'll find yourself using both these tools. It just depends on the instance of the repair. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to repair this spot here that's on our horizon line. And I'll hit J, and I'm going to go to the Content Aware tools, and I'm going to choose the spot healing brush. Now with the spot healing brush, I could go and repair these spots that are completely surrounded by the same color of background and value. So I'm going to repair this one first, and I'm making my brush large enough to encompass the whole spot, so that when I click on it and let go, it gathers from the perimeter of the brush the value and content and puts it over the spot. Now we're going to try and do the same thing with the spot that falls on the horizon line. Now the brush is too big, so I'm going to make it smaller. And then I'm going to go in and click on it to repair it. And if we look closely, you can see what has happened now to our horizon line. I'm going to undo that and do it again. You can see that it's indented and it's of darker value. So what it's done is it's taken values from the spot and put them down on the horizon. I'm going to Z it out, and you can see the horizon is back to normal. I'll do it one more time so we're kind of clear on that. And you can see that it wobbled down and the spot is gone. Had it been darker, this would be darker down here as well. So that's not acceptable. So I'll Z it out. And in this instance, I'll probably get my pen tool. I would go in and select along my horizon line, so that when I use the traditional clone technique, I don't clone over the horizon line. So if I needed to, I would zoom in, maybe hit A on the keyboard, and I might go in and tweak those paths a bit so that I don't get any of the gray background on it. I'll right click, choose make selection, click OK. Now sometimes you could have a value change that you really don't see up here, so very often what I'll do is I'll go to my marquee tool and I might put a little bit of a feather on that. And then I'll get my clone tool, hold down S on the keyboard, and I'll scale it down to the proportion that would work. I'll click in the content I want to copy, and I'll start to repair that. Try that again. And deselect. Just a bit there. And I'll zoom back. Okay, so it really, the instance dictates the tool that you would want to use. Now I'm going to get rid of this path that goes through this line up here. And I'm going to use the content aware because the values are a little bit different down in this area. So I'm going to use my pen tool. So I'll hit P, and I'm going to do the best I can to drop a path over that black line. And this would work well if you had a hair you had to get rid of on someone's forehead. So now that I have the path where I want it, I'm going to hit J on the keyboard because I'm going to use the spot healing brush. But the brush has to be a size and a weight that would be appropriate for that thin line. So I could visually do this with my open bracket and maybe have a brush that's a little bit further out from the width of that black line. I'll right click and I think I'll back off the hardness a bit. And now if I hit P on the keyboard and right click, I can go to stroke path. And under the stroke path menu there are a lot of different choices. But I'm looking for spot healing. I'll click on it, I'll click OK. It'll blink, and then when it's done blinking you can hit P on the keyboard and then hit return and you can get rid of your path. And you see it did a pretty nice job of eliminating just that thin line. I think I'll use the spot healing tool while I'm at it. And I'll go in and get rid of this spot. And that one. And up in here I'll drag across here to get rid of that line. Now sometimes you're better off using the cloning tool and then going back in with the spot healing. And I'm going to do that with this kind of broader one with different values. So I'm going to hit S on the keyboard and I'll set my brush big enough to copy below the line itself, but not so big that I end up selecting the tree down in this area. So I'll click here and then I'll drag across. Now be sure that once you want to use the tool by itself and you want the target for the clone to follow the brush icon, go to your clone source and turn off that horizontal arrangement or that flip. Otherwise you'll be copying content going in the opposite direction. So once again I'll select, drag through. Went a little too far, so I'll go in there. Now I'm going to hit J on the keyboard and I'm going to go in with a larger brush and I'm just going to start brushing over this to clean it up. And you can see that once you've kind of gotten rid of the darker values from that gash that was in it, the healing brush does a pretty good job. So you'll find yourself using either one or using them together.